my previous video about Kirill Budanov, I mentioned the special operations carried out by the GUR, main Directorate of Intelligence. Today we step away from the surface and plunge headfirst into the mesmerizing labyrinths of covert missions led by the GUR. But before we take the leap, remember, our understanding is pieced together solely from open source intelligence, respecting the clandestine nature of these operations. My name is Drutska, and I will navigate you through this intriguing world of secret special operations. So let's dive right in. Our starting point is a special evacuation operation right in the heart of Afghanistan during the chaotic aftermath of American troops' withdrawal. The unforgettable sights of desperation and despair. The people clinging to airplanes in their desperate bid for escape, fearing retribution from the Taliban, etched a horrifying tableau in our minds. During this intense period, a brave team from the GUR, Ukrainian Ministry of Defense main Directorate of Intelligence, ventured into Kabul's turmoil. Their mission? To find and escort Ukrainian citizens and international organization employees to safety. In the end, Ukraine performed 6 heroic flights, evacuating approximately 160 of its citizens and several from other countries. As Ukrainian officials explained, not all Ukrainians were able to reach the airport, so the planes took other people for evacuation as well. The last 3 of these flights left Kabul on August 28th and arrived in Kyiv in the morning of the 29th. Overall, officials report over 700 people evacuated from Afghanistan. The daunting complexity of this operation lay in its location. The city of Kabul, overwhelmed by terror-stricken crowds, rampant theft, separated families, unsanitary conditions, and the looming threat of terrorism. In the city itself, controlled by the Taliban, gunshots could be heard. Initially, the Ukrainian Foreign Affairs Ministry and State Migration Service formed lists of our citizens. Social network groups sprung up, intending to coordinate the search. However, our special forces dared to venture outside the airport's perimeter, directly into the chaotic city to find the people stranded in Kabul. Because those with whom we agreed on where and when we have to pick them up often simply could not reach the agreed place. An audacious move that no other nation dared at that time. No one went on foot to look for their citizens. The contingent of coalition forces that were at the airport did not leave its borders. Therefore, perhaps this is how the foreign press reacted to the operation of our special forces. Even during this war, buildings and structures built by the Russians do not withstand the wind of change. And one of such structures was the Crimean Bridge. The Crimean Bridge, constructed in 2016 by the Russians to link the Ukrainian Crimean Peninsula and the Russian Taman Peninsula. The occupying authorities dubbed the bridge's construction an historical mission, one of the key tasks for the final unification of Crimea with Russia. In May 2018, the automobile bridge was opened, and in December 2019, the railway bridge with the opening of regular train traffic. Putin himself drew a truck over this bridge, conducting a grand opening and demonstrating how strong Russia is. Besides the propaganda advantage, such a step had a purely practical benefit. Before the bridge was built, you could get to Crimea using a ferry crossing or through Ukrainian territory. It's quite evident that Russian logistics benefited from this, and in the event of an attempt by the Ukrainian army to retake Crimea by military means, reserves could quickly be transferred to the peninsula. With the onset of Russian invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, the bridge is used to supply the Russian armed forces on the southern theater of the Russian-Ukrainian war. It is quite clear that the Crimean Bridge is the legitimate target of the Ukrainian armed forces. Or, as Kirill Budanov put it, this construction is superfluous. Now, let's move directly to the events related to the explosion. On October 8, 2022, around 6 in the morning, a truck exploded on the automobile part of the Crimean Bridge near the Taman Peninsula. The explosion destroyed 2 spans of the bridge's roadway. On the railway track, 7 fuel tankers caught fire and a freight train was engulfed in flames. The Crimean Bridge was and remains, well as long as we didn't destroy it, an important part of transport communications between Russia and annexed Crimea. Traffic across the bridge was partially suspended because Putin's pride looked approximately like this. On October 10, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin stated, "There is no doubt this is a terrorist act aimed at destroying critically important civil infrastructure of the Russian Federation and the author's performance contractors, the Special Service of Ukraine." You probably have a question: how could such an important infrastructure object be without proper supervision? The secret was revealed by the Russians themselves after investigating this case. Representatives of the Russian Special Services drew attention to the work of the duty shift, which led the truck with explosives through despite the complexes of supervising suspicious cargo installed at the entrance to the bridge. The video, which you see now, clearly shows that there was practically no check. It's a real pity that the Russians do not act so irresponsibly in other areas. Maybe then this war would have ended earlier. In the vibrant history of 2023, on the 5th of May, Russia triumphantly declared the complete restoration of a shattered bridge segment, a commendable feat considering the brief window since the explosive incident. Coincidentally, the explosion shook the Crimean Bridge just a day after Putin celebrated his birthday on October 7. What did Ukraine get left with? Well, firstly, it's the problems of Russian logistics in ensuring their southern military group. Secondly, this event served as a stark reminder of Russia's vulnerability in protecting its own assets. To commemorate this impactful event, the head of the Ukrainian Post commissioned a special stamp. While chronologically this episode should have featured earlier in the narrative, its profound impact urged me to discuss it later. And if you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to support the channel and help us grow, you can do so through my Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, which I have shared in the description below. Mariupol found itself under the threat of encirclement as early as March 2022, just a week after the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. Located strategically at the heart of the city, by the sea coast at the Kalmius River mouth, is the Azovstal metallurgical plant, a natural defensive barricade. The defenders decided to retreat and hold the defense there to the last if the enemy could not be stopped on the approaches to Mariupol. More than 30 underground bunkers are located under the factory. These bunkers served as safe havens for wounded soldiers and up to 1,000 civilians as the city suffered relentless enemy bombings. The sky over Mariupol was controlled by Russian combat aircraft, and the city was tightly blockaded from the sea by the enemy fleet. Both enemy ships and planes were erasing Mariupol from the face of the earth. The situation became increasingly critical day by day. Day by day, enemy ships and planes attempt to wipe Mariupol off the map with their 500 and 1,000-kilogram bombs, including the formidable 3-ton Fab 3000 bombs. Our warriors were defenseless against this aerial onslaught due to a lack of anti-aircraft resources. Also, there was a lack of ammunition and means to hit armored vehicles, which made the occupiers move closer to the factory. Amidst the chaos, it was crucial to arrange an immediate evacuation for the gravely wounded, whose numbers were increasing in the Azovstal bunkers. In the factory's underground hospital, complex surgeries were performed, including even amputations. Lack of proper care and medications posed a lethal threat to these wounded warriors. Responsibility to execute a risky operation to supply Mariupol's defenders and evacuate the wounded fell on the shoulders of Ukrainian military intelligence. According to GUR's head, Kirill Budanov, the idea of this operation stemmed from the grim reality when Mariupol was completely isolated, cut off from external supplies, be it personnel, weaponry, ammunition, medicine, or food. The only choice left was an airborne breakthrough, as the enemy had overrun the entire southern region. The clouded sky offered a glimmer of hope for this audacious plan. Military intelligence decided to bridge the city's barricade via helicopters, prioritizing stealth and speed over striking enemy targets. Thus, 16 helicopters completed 7 daring flights. But how did they pull it off? The greatest threat was enemy air defense systems, handheld anti-aircraft missile systems wielded by infantry, and large-caliber weapons necessitating low-altitude flights. Yet this wasn't sufficient to evade air defense completely, so military intelligence crafted a brilliant solution: monitoring enemy air defense movement in real time and creating special maps highlighting enemy equipment locations. These navigational lifelines were handed to flight navigators who planned the routes. The burden of crafting the flight routes fell upon the navigators of each crew. The success of these operations hinged on their calculations. This would determine whether it would be a one-way ticket. After all the details had been worked out, the helicopters were loaded with weapons, ammunitions, and essential medicines before embarking on this risky mission. Despite the looming threats from enemy air defense, another menace awaited them: the vulnerable helicopters on the ground. Thus, swift unloading of weapons and ammunitions, immediate loading of the wounded, and a quick takeoff were crucial. Accompanying the pilots were military intelligence operatives ready to spring into action to evacuate the pilots to safety if a helicopter was damaged. Sadly, not all heroes made it back. 3 out of the 16 helicopters that participated in the breakthrough to Azovstal were lost. However, their valiant efforts bore fruits. The defenders of Azovstal held the ground. The months they brought allowed us to conduct the defense system until still its place today. Their actions thwarted the enemy and prevented the over 10,000 strong group from immediately advancing to Zaporizhia. We gained valuable time and successfully disrupted their plans. Budanov conducted. See you in my next videos. Героям слава!